CIT's teaching and learning ecosystem is growing. And with the new spaces and new technology at CIT Woden, we can enable a range of different learning activities and delivery modes to take place. In this video, we'll look at how flexible, active learning spaces can be used to facilitate engaging, social, and collaborative learning. When planning for active learning, we can look at Professor Diana Lauriard's 6 learning types and think about what are the kinds of learning that we want to take place, remembering that a rich learning experience will embrace several different types of learning activities. Traditional classroom formats are more suited to a teacher-centric acquisition type learning, and fixed furniture and rigid spaces can make it difficult to transition between different learning modes. Active learning, guided by constructivist principles, supports a range of activities happening in the space. But flexible furnishings don't automatically lead to active learning. If you deliver a chalk and talk session in a flexible kind of space, you'll just end up with students with sore necks. So we can look at Lauriard's learning types and think about what types of learning and teaching we're trying to foster, and what aspects of the space, furniture, and layout will foster that desired learning. You could use social pods to create movement in the class centered on student activity, discussion, and collaboration. You could use a campfire setup for a non-hierarchical discussion. This format is nice and casual and really good for sharing information in a low-stakes way. A boardroom-style discussion format can be good when it needs to be a little bit more teacher-led and good for decision-making and project planning. The U-shape is really good for switching between group discussion and a whiteboard focus, but not so great for collaboration and students getting together and being active in the class. Most general learning classrooms at CIT Woden have 4 whiteboard panels around the room, and so having whiteboard huddle groups is really good for students to be able to visualize their thinking in small group activities. And there's a range of student collaboration spaces around CIT Woden. This is really good for self-regulated learning. It can be formal or informal. You can even use outdoor spaces as well. And most of the collaboration spaces are digitally connected to the main classroom through a WebEx kit. So whatever combination of configurations you end up using, the flexibility of the space should allow for teacher to group interactions, learner to learner interactions, teacher to individual learner interactions, as well as easy transitions between different learning activities. So here are some tips for teaching in active learning spaces. And the first tip is, of course, designing activities that meet your learning outcomes, but also take advantage of the space and being able to use that space in different ways. The second tip is to communicate your expectations for using the space to your learners, letting them know that they're going to be active participants in the class and they might be doing different things throughout the class, moving around to different areas and interacting with each other. And you can do this by signaling in your intro to the class, using words such as you're going to discuss, you're going to problem solve, collaborate, develop, to indicate all these different types of learning that they'll be involved in throughout the session. The next tip is to use the vertical spaces. So whether it's the physical whiteboards, whether it's the interactive whiteboards or pinnable surfaces, for students to be able to visualize their learning and talk to their ideas is a great way to get interactivity. Next is guiding students through transitions in class. And that's being really explicit about when students might need to move into groups, or when they need to move to be able to see the screen, or when they're going to collaborate together. A simple strategy that I use with this is just to embed a timer into a PowerPoint or eLearn. I just use a link from YouTube to embed. My favorite is the hot dog timer, but it just gives the learners a visual cue as to when they're going to be shifting to a new activity. Next is to decide what technology you will and won't use. So what technology is going to enhance the active learning environment? And is there a use of technology that might detract from it or might create extra cognitive load and confusion? Or it could just be that there's something that you want to practice a little more before implementing into the class. And in a similar vein, just take an incremental approach to changes in teaching. It's a pretty different thing to adjust to new environments and new technology. So you can go on a journey with your learners, discovering some of these possibilities together throughout the process. Which leads nicely into our final tip, which is to ask for student feedback regularly. And that means that you'll be able to adjust how you're using those spaces to meet the needs of your students, of what they're finding engaging, what they could be struggling with, and what they'd like to do more of.